Hello, denizens of the universe. If I'm going to say this right now, I hate that whenever you bring up Google Hangouts, the default is, oh, let's bring up the webcam right away. There's been several times where I've started up Google Hangouts or live events with other people, and their faces popped up on camera. It's especially bad when you're already live. You have somebody coming in a bit late due to whatever circumstances. Their face pops up right down there in the corner, grainy webcam and everything. I am honestly curious as to whether or not there are any high definition webcams out there. I highly doubt it, but yeah, just it automatically brings up webcam. Webcam, let's see your ugly mug appear on camera. Okay, I'm just talking about whatever ridiculous nonsense comes to mind. Okay, in regards to the title I picked for this one, Dan versus. Why I was thinking about it was that, yes, even though it's a bad idea, I do look through YouTube comments from time to time, and I noticed some discussion about self-inserts on one of the videos I uploaded. Not opening that particular can of worms again right now because, ugh. But thinking about self-insert characters, if you really think about it, most famous characters in fiction, or even one of the bases for setting up or creating characters, is the author themselves or people they kind of know. They draw from real life experiences, or some of the more savvy ones kind of study the people around them, how they act, how they behave and conduct themselves, compare how they react to certain things to psychological profiles they might have read, might even read psychology books. And just go ahead and set up a character profile that way. Where I'm going with this, Dan versus the premise for it. The two main characters are based on and modeled after the two guys that created the show. And the goal was to create these two caricatures of the worst parts of their personality, their worst personality traits. That was the entire basis for why Dan's such an asshole and Chris is a glutton. When it comes to the idea of using or setting up characters in that kind of respect, I'd say that's one of the better examples to lead into it with. Why it's not necessarily a bad thing when going about creating a character. That you have a point of reference. And then the point is to, well, in the case of Chris and Dan, they're trying to create characters or interesting characters by using themselves as a point of reference. What they may or may not dislike about how they hold and conduct themselves, things that their character has been criticized about, blowing them out of proportion, and then creating two characters that bounce off of each other in a fun, ridiculous kind of way. Dan, he definitely has some kind of mental disorder. He's arrogant, hell bent on revenge to the point that he'll ruin people's lives or whatever it takes to get something done. It can be petty or it can be meaningful. It kind of varies between episodes. And then Chris, he's the ultimate doormat. Both Dan and Elise walk all over the poor guy. One of the running gags is that he always has a refrigerator full of food that he carries around somewhere. Or I'm surprised they don't have him walking around with the refrigerator strapped to his back. Just kind of thinking here, this is off the cuff, so probably going to be a very random, bizarre discussion. But Chris and Dan, pretty much the first example that came to mind of an obvious self-insert, but one that was executed effectively and in a fun, interesting way. Other ones that I can think of where you can pull it up from discussions from the writers or where they took inspiration, Manny and Frida from El Tigre. The writing for them was based on how did the two creators imagine themselves acting at that age, or what were they like at age 13 or 14? Going on a completely off the wall tangent, what kind of kills me is that some people look at the whole this is the author self insert. They're drawing inspiration from their life, and these characters are based on them. So, since Manny and Frida are based off of the two creators, that means they're going to get together at the end, right? That means there's going to be a romance struck up between the two. But that's obvious in-game canon because they're based on the authors, and the authors are a married couple. I remember the first time around that I uploaded my Starco shipping corner. When looking at the comments for that one, somebody brought up how, or no, this wasn't the Starco shipping corner. This was some other follow-up video where I had the audacity to suggest that maybe, just maybe, Starco might not be in-game canon. That just because the two lead characters are based off of the creator and their boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, that they might not entertain the idea of bringing another character in, or even having a different in-game romance, or even making an alternative ending. I guess I'm just speaking as somebody. Okay, yes, it is obvious that, yeah, those two are going to be in-game canon. But as an author, I just can't help but wonder, wouldn't it be kind of fun to play with the character ending up with somebody else, or entertaining the idea? Hell, I don't like to discount possibilities here, because even though characters are based on real life relationships, or it depends on what kind of setup you have, if another character fits a bit better, if you're looking at it from a strictly narrative perspective, who says the author wouldn't have them end up with somebody else or pursue a different route? Like in the case of El Tigre, who says they wouldn't have had Manny end up with Zoe, or at least play with the idea? I guess, if anything, I don't like to discount the possibility that some author someday might take a different route. That's just my take on it, though. Even if I had a couple of characters that I based on myself and my real life boyfriend, if I'm looking at another character or an interesting prospect strictly from the story itself, if there'd be interesting potential in having the character go with this other character, especially character development or plot progression wise, might just go in that direction. I'm not describing this in quite the way I want to. Gah. I guess the biggest point, or what I want to get down to brass tacks with this ridiculous tangent, is just because a character or set of characters is based on the creator or them and their real life partner, that's not necessarily basis or bounds for saying that the two fictitious characters modeled after them are endgame canon. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't think that's a legitimate, cemented argument. I think you need a lot more than just that. It really just, I guess it depends on a case by case thing. If the creator outright says, these two are based on me and my partner, these two are endgame canon, it has to be an explicit, these two characters are endgame canon for me to count it as quote unquote evidence for arguing in favor of a ship. Just random, ridiculous tangent on my part. If there's anything that drives me nuts when people discuss ships or cartoon characters, or where maybe some of that bias comes from some of my first interactions with literary criticism. The fact that there is a branch of literary criticism or literary theory that draws specifically on what the author's life was like, and that you have to draw in their life experiences and events, and that's the only frame of reference. The only way to interpret or discuss a work is to say, this is the author's intent. Okay, since I keep seeing this pop up in the comment section, let's just shelve the Jared Shapiro discussion. When it comes down to it, it was an in joke on the part of the staff that went a bit too far and ended up blowing up in their faces. There are certain scenes or character interactions that you can outline and say are disturbing when discussing what the original rumor was, or the fact that the character shares the same name as the Subway mascot guy. But what it boils down to, in my personal opinion, Jared Shapiro was a bad in joke on the part of the staff that was drawn out a bit too long and stayed a bit too long. Honestly, if anything, the way that they set it up, I'll just start out by saying this. The reboot wasn't a good idea in the first place. There's several foot and mouth moments that happen with the twerking scene and a whole bunch of other stuff. But the way that they set up the characters and what kinds of situations they have them in, why didn't they just age up the Powerpuff Girls? Why didn't they just make them slightly older, since it's obvious they want to appeal to the preteen demographic? That's really all I'm going to leave it at. And just, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. Wanted to address it one more time since it kept popping up here. That's my opinion on it. Take or leave the character as you want. I just think that it was an in joke that went too far. Cartoon critic, in regards to the discussion I was going into about ships, I was saying, or the convoluted argument I was trying to bring up, is that I don't think bringing up this character is based on the creator and their romantic interest or their partner in real life. I don't think that that's a solid argument for this ship is going to be in-game canon. Or I don't think it should be the only argument that people resort to or bring up. Kendall, characters from shows you like from shows that I don't like? Uh, I don't really have a situation like that, to be brutally honest. Most of the shows, or there's one that comes close, I guess. I think Tough Puppy's a pretty mediocre cartoon, just kind of so-so, but I really love I really love Snap Trap and Kitty Catswell from that particular cartoon. I'd even go so far as to say that Snap Trap is one of the few saving graces when it comes to how that particular cartoon is executed or how certain episodes play out. He's he's practically the crux of what makes any of the jokes in the cartoon funny. You had some potential with Dudley and Kitty as the Get Smart parody and the straight man goofball comedy duo, but it just kind of falls flat on his face. Dudley doesn't really have the charismatic, fun goofball setup that you need for the goofball in that particular relationship, in my opinion. Thinking about it, what immediately comes to mind when describing Tough Puppy, walking, talking fart joke, or endless references to his butt. Yeah, yeah. Uh, cartoon critic, I should probably, yeah, I need to clarify what I was originally talking about. I started out discussing that and then I branched out into other topics completely. I was originally talking about that, yes, but then I branched out to bringing up characters like Manny and Frida from El Tigre, where those two were in fact based on the married couple that created the show. The way that they go about writing Manny and Frida is how they behaved and conducted themselves at age 13 and 14. And I was pretty much trying to set up the hypothetical. Somebody uses this fact, they're a married couple in real life, and the characters take a lot of inspiration from them. This means that this ship is in game canon. Where I was trying to go with that is, I don't. I'd say that that's some evidence, but it's not the end all be all argument for a ship being canon. Hell, if you look at one of the alternative endings for El Tigre, or even how Manny and Frida interact in some of the endings for the show, it still comes across as a pretty platonic relationship. If anything, if you're going to present an argument that a ship is going to be endgame canon, I'd say base it more on things you've seen in the show, how the characters bounce off of each other and interact. Bringing in the inspiration on the part of the author or the writers, that's some argument or brings in some interesting discussion or back and forth, but it shouldn't be the crux of the argument because it's highly possible that the authors or creators behind the show, they might have had in mind that these two characters are going to end up together, but they could very easily go in another direction too. In regards to shipping, I'd say it's always been a very ridiculous fan practice, ridiculously convoluted, and everybody has a different take on what they think should be or what the rules and lay of the land are in regards to who they ship with whom. It all boils down to you're playing hypothetical love, or you're playing hypothetical matchmaker for two fictitious characters, and there needs to be some self awareness or grain of self awareness. Yes, Frida did kiss Manny at the end of one of the last episodes. I was just using that as a general example that if the show had run a bit longer, who says Manny wouldn't have ended up with Zoe, even though you. I don't know. I guess in regards to the argument that I was trying to set up, if you're going to argue for Manny and Frida, you could argue they do have a pretty strong chemistry and dynamic based on how they interact in the show and just how big a part Frida is in Manny's life. And yeah, the kiss scene at the end of that particular episode. Quite frankly, I can't blame people for hating shipping or wanting to stay as far away from the topic as possible. Because you're always going to have some subset of people who get a bit too wrapped up in it. Like, just going to name one. Pearl and Mayor Dewey. People getting upset over people having headcanons about a character's sexual orientation. Or just, God. Just for the record, I could probably chalk up the last 10, 20 minutes as me sticking my foot in my mouth. I have a tendency to do that every so often. Please forget everything I just said when address it later or make a more structured setup to that particular discussion. In regards to shipping characters from video games, I'd say the closest one is Max and Chloe from Life is Strange. I consider that one of my garbage dump ships. When it comes to Life is Strange in general, I have such mixed feelings about it. If I ever got the chance to meet Alex Hirsch, the guy behind Gravity Falls, I wouldn't bring up ships at all. I'd be a lot more interested in asking about where he came up with a psychopath like Bill, or what it was like setting up all the Easter eggs and stuff on show. I'd be a lot more interested in asking about those aspects or elements of the show. If I were gonna look up anything ship related, I'd keep it strictly to Tumblr or the fandom quarters of the internet. And even then, gotta be wary. Gotta be wary, because you're always going to find something you really don't want to see, even if it's a ship you actually like. In regards to whether or not I play video games, I kinda, if The Sims counts. I played around to that the other day. I'm not really an avid gamer though. The closest I've ever come, or the closest I've ever come, is bouts where I play a lot of The Sims. The only other game aside from quote unquote life simulators I've played through within the past couple of years, Undertale. Yeah, I finished that all the way through. Played a little bit of Transistor. Need to queue that up again. And it all boils down to I was not one of those kids that grew up spending a bunch of time getting used to consoles and how a video game controller works. And if you ever wondered what it's like for a gamer dating a non gamer, a point of contention or intrigue that comes up between myself and my boyfriend fairly often is what kind of learning curve it is to learn how to use a game controller or how to get into the rhythm or groove of how one game approaches setting up a controller versus another one. How to think like a quote unquote, or how to think like a game developer. Like, where would they put the exit in this dungeon? Where would they put hidden Easter eggs? Like, what would be the most likely candidate for walking behind a wall or to a certain part of the screen and finding something there? Or what treasure chest to open or which ones to avoid? I'm talking in very generalized strokes here. But when it comes to discussing this kind of thing with him, apparently I'm a bit of an enigma since all the stuff that I was just describing, it's second nature to him because he's spent so long doing it. Whereas it's very new to me. In short, the best way to describe it, video games are a skill. When it comes down to it, it's a skill just like anything that you have to spend time practicing, honing, and developing a specific skill set for. And there's specific types of games that require a certain set of reflexes, reactions, whatever. It's a skill just like any others. It takes time, practice, and an effort to want to sit down and learn how the thing works to enjoy it or really get the most out of it. Who do you think is better, Bill Cipher or Discord? Character wise? Oh man. Come on. When it comes to character writing or how interesting a character is, I'm going to give it to Bill Cipher in the respect that he's a fantastic villain. And there's so much I want to pick at in regards to what motivates or drives him, how he became the entity he is. If he wasn't just created that way. And just, he's, he fascinates me. He is incredibly in-depth and well written. There is so much under the surface in regards to Bill Cipher. And Hirsch does a fantastic job making him sound like just how much his design and voice contrast with how evil and out of it he really is. It's just. And then Discord, I freaking love Discord from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but it's more because of John Delancey's performance and the mannerisms of the character than the character's writing. Q is one of the biggest reasons why I fell in love with and started watching Star Trek. So it boils down to I like Discord because Discord is the animated John Delancey. That's There's only so far you can really take that when discussing why you like a character or why you enjoy a character to a certain extent. There's a fifth Equestria Girls? Sorry to sound so ignorant on this, but I stopped after the second one. I knew there was a third one, but there's a fifth? Or is this one of those situations where it's just funny to joke that it's going to have never-ending sequels? And did this one premiere in theaters just like the first two? Was this yet another theatrical release? Or has it finally reached the point where it's just a TV movie that comes out every so often? Also, kind of touched on villainous in the last live event, but I'll go ahead and go a bit more in depth or further discussion of it here. I think there's a lot of potential in regards to the setup that they have so far. I was thinking about this the other day, and the way it's set up right now, the 1 minute shorts, it's enough to establish that this is a quirky, kind of odd group of characters and that there's a lot of potential for character based humor and slapstick because you have a bunch of eccentric personalities thrown together, like the insane gal that has the Pepe Le Pew brand crush on the leader, the awkward, kind of cowardly, mad scientist. You have the kind of power dynamic between him and the leader, where the leader tells him, "You're going to do this now because I said so." And then he cowers and says, "Okay, sir." And then there's another scene in the background of one of the other shorts where Dementia, the insane gal, is just slapping at him and giving him a hard time. You have the out of place Care Bear, which there would be such an interesting and fun clash of the Titans between him and the lead. Just how different their aesthetics and quote unquote life perspectives are just from looking at them. There's a lot of potential, and I don't think 2 or 3 minutes is enough to really fully explore this. I'd be curious to see what this group would do with the 15-minute short or how they'd expand it into a 10-15 minute episode. Where things could go from there, like getting a bit, like having a structured plot, like working with one of your run of the mill cartoon plots. How would this crazy cast of characters deal with something like just going to bring up a random idea here? Let's say if they had a Girl Scout, they kept trying to come up and sell them cookies or something like that. And they were trying to find a way to get rid of the Girl Scout, and it was a tug of war between we destroy her or we recruit her or something. There's a lot of interesting ideas that they could play with that I'd like to see it on a bigger scale than what it is right now. I think this could be a really decently well done comedy series because of what kind of characters and such you're working with. That's really what it boils down to. Oh, wow. I just saw your comment, Austin. I did not know that. So they're working with that on top of everything else where they have a reset button for characters or characters dying or getting disintegrated or whatever. Oh, wow. Oh man. This may sound horrible, but I'm that much more curious to see this turned into a full-blown series now. Just the horrible thing is, since you only have so much to work with from watching the shorts, I've been describing this as League of Super Evil, but pushing the envelope just a little bit further. Or rather, you could describe it as that if you're willing to have characters kill each other on screen, just wow. What kind of you could sew other dark humor and stuff into the series if you wanted to. To be brutally honest with what kind of art style or how the characters bounce off of each other, I could see this cast going for an Invader Zim dark humor style too, or weaving in bits of satire every so often. That wouldn't make or break the show, but it'd be kind of interesting if that element popped up every once in a while. Oh. So the Equestria Girls, as it stands now, they've they've brought it down to half hour cartoon specials. Okay. So yeah, it's been boiled down to we're going to release a TV movie every so often format. Okay, that explains it. In regards to anything My Little Pony related, I just don't keep tabs. I just don't. And since I don't keep tabs on the magical Technicolor talking horses, which you're more likely to sell me on watching that than Equestria Girls. I'm just going to leave it at that. Equestria Girls isn't bad. I've just never had a big interest in it. I'm not. Hell, my buddies like to watch this ridiculous magical girl show called Lolly Rock. Yes, the title sounds horrible, but it's in the same vein as Winx Club, but not nearly as interesting or well thought out. It's just a generic run of the mill. This is another country doing their take on a magical girl kind of thing. They pull up episodes like every so often to rip it. If if it were just a one-on-one situation where somebody was trying to convince me to sit down and watch that, like I wasn't sitting there with my buddies for a riff session, you'd have to pull teeth to get me to watch it. It'd be the same situation with the Equestria Girls. I'm sorry. It just is. And just for the record, I don't mind Friendship is Magic. There's a couple of episodes that I'd say are really fairly well done. I'll give credit where credit is due. It's just not one of my favorite cartoons. I don't think Winx Club is still going on. I was just using that as a frame of reference for one of the better magical girl shows that I've seen done. I've heard good things. I've heard decent things about it. Or, no, thinking about it, one of the better magical girl influence series that I've heard about or heard lots of good things about would be Witch, the acronym one. I need to sit down and watch that. I see fan art of that still pop up every so often. In regards to the Star versus TV movie thing coming out, oh yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Just not sure where to start with poking at or just bringing up that particular discussion. Because they revealed some pretty big bomb drops in that promo, like Moon saying that Toppy killed her mom, and that's just one of the things that stood out to me. Trying to remember some of the other stuff that popped up. They pretty much confirmed that Toppy is coming back, or there's some kind of vision with him, or we're gonna get some kind of awesome flashback sequence. Because there's that brief moment where he was lifting his muscular arms. He was dressed like he was in the portrait where he appeared. appeared for like a couple seconds, see Moon the Undaunting portrait. This was an official on TV promo, just for the record. I did see some I did see somebody's recorded version that they put up on YouTube, so I can't confirm whether or not it was on TV, but it looked pretty official. I'm pretty sure that was the official promo. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Trailer, not promo. God, I'm so bad about mixing up terms. No, it's not promo, it's a trailer. Supercut of several different interesting clips, drumming up hype. One of the biggest two of the big details being they were willing to give away that there's going to be a Toppy flashback and more brought up about Moon's rivalry or dynamic with Toppy. Nothing concrete, just they're going to elaborate on it in this particular TV movie special. Why else would they put those two clips in there? Moon confiding in Star about what happened about Toppy killing her mom and then showing Toppy in the flesh. Or maybe I didn't hear that right. I don't. I need to watch the trailer again. Okay. Oh, damn it. Just forgot the biggest freaking thing. They addressed the whole Eclipse is stuck in a crystal thing. They addressed that. PC in regards to the kind of video you're suggesting, give me a second. I'd say go ahead and compile a list of what your 5 favorite and least favorite episodes are. Describe each one, see how long the script is, and then go from there as to whether or not you're going to split it up into 2 parts. Because otherwise, I just tell you, if you can upload up to 30 minutes, if you think it's going to be close to that or around that range, just put it up wholesale. Just put up the whole freaking thing. It's a pain in the ass uploading a couple different parts of videos if you don't have to. Like splitting up the entire production. It looks like you're planning on making this a bigger project. Just go ahead and make a big ass video. Long ass video. The whole Eclipsa reveal at the end of that Star versus trailer. Not sure what they're going to do with that, but just I'm so freaking the special needs to come out already. It needs to come out already because I want to know. I want to know, and I'm not going to entertain ridiculous fan theories anymore. Like, why was Eclipsa put in the crystal in the first place? Or how did she end up crystallized rather than dead? Are we going to learn more about her approach to black magic and why her particular chapter in the book is so sinister, or what kind of undertones there are to that? I definitely get the impression we're going to see more about the relationship between good and evil magic. Because they're definitely hinting at the magic itself isn't inherently good or evil. Because Star was using a blend of both to perform what's a fairly simplistic, straightforward spell. Like, she's not a by the book kind of person. She'll use whatever at her disposal. Like, she's going to dabble in both kinds of magic. Lucky you. Look how everybody's talking about going on vacation. This is the first day off I've had in a while. It's my own fault, though. I'm not gonna talk about real life stuff, though. In regards to the Star versus movie promo trailer thing, there's only so much I'm really willing to touch on, discuss, or bring up since only so much you really can. I'd rather save the really nerdy, in depth analytical discussion for after the stuff has actually come out. We know what all's going to happen and stuff. Like there's actually stuff to break down. Rather than let's have conspiracy theories about Moon and Toffee and just because people come up with some pretty spectacularly bizarre stuff. I will say this much: part of me does kind of like the whole Toffee is Marco from the future thing. It's one of my favorites to reference as a crackpot fan theory. And part of me would love to read a fan fiction where somebody plays with that idea. It makes it sound so legit. I'd actually be kind of bummed it doesn't happen in canon. I'm horrible. If somebody sees a fan fiction or writes a fan fiction about Marco is Tuffy from the future, please send it my way. Send me a link to it. I want to read that. In regards to who Moon's mama was in that Hall of Grandmas, I'm not sure it was Eclipse. I get the impression that Eclipse was one of the older or further far back. I don't know. Maybe. Wouldn't discount it. What you have in mind for a theatrical trailer for Battle of Mutiny? Lots of logos. Kind of curious to see what you have to say about that. Been looking up a bunch of random videos on YouTube recently, or rather, they just kind of rolled into my recommended. I've been kind of fascinated by people taking movies like the B movie. Oh God, why did I bring that up? Or Zootopia, and sort of working video editing magic, like putting together just the right scenes with just the right music selection to make it seem like it's a trailer for a much different genre than what it's meant to be. Maybe even having a compilation of all these different trailers and just how big a deal the editing is when going into a project like this. Just how important it is to think about a specific theme, tone, how you go about presenting or setting up a trailer for a movie. You just don't really think about it. Gonna look up and see what that particular Steven Universe episode is. Give me a second. Yeah, I've seen that particular 1 hour TV movie. Kind of needed to look up or clarify what that was since I didn't know that was the official title for all the 4 episodes strung together. Got into a pretty extensive discussion about that last time. To be brutally honest, not really interested in discussing that one again. Michael Bay should direct the Battle for Muni? No! 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 I cannot tell you how much I hate Michael Bay as a director. I can't just. This guy is fantastic with special effects. I'll give him that. I love the explosions he sets up on screen. But after being dragged and forced to sit through a 3 hour, let's see Michael Bay set up elaborate explosion sets with people running away with it and just loosely connecting it with loose plot threads to justify this, e.g. Transformers 3 or 4, I don't even remember which one it was. After sitting through that, no. Michael Bay is only a few steps down from M. Night Shyamalan in regards to my least favorite directors. That's saying a lot. That's saying a lot, since you know why M. Night Shyamalan's in there. If you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan and you saw the live action movie, you know why he tops my list in that regard. I wouldn't mind seeing Michael Bay be the special effects guy for a live action adaptation or trailer for Starbursts, like setting up a scene where you have Star and Marco walking away from an explosion and looking cool, like a couple of actors or cosplayers doing something fun. Now, yeah, that I could get behind, but him directing anything? No. This man needs to stay away from the director's chair. I remember there was a trailer floating around where the smug guy comes on screen and says, "It doesn't matter what I do with Transformers. People are gonna come back every time and watch it anyway. They're gonna throw money at this." Like, he doesn't even care whether he didn't care whether or not it was a faithful adaptation or interesting. He knows that people are gonna shovel money at it. That is guaranteed to put butts in seats. And there's just something kind of depressing about giving a flying crap about wanting to see giant robots fighting with each other and having an interesting story behind it, and then having Michael Bay come on screen and just ah! Damn it! I just I just had to watch Transformers Prime or entries into the series where people give a flying crap about characterizing anthropomorphic giant robots and the struggle between the Autobots and the Decepticons, getting me to give a flying crap about transforming robots, which I used to just see as this ridiculous toy line, just something Hasbro would reboot every so often next to the 16th iteration of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic or My Little Pony. Just, it used to be that, but just sad truth is, I'd argue that Transformers had more merit or potential for having an interesting story and characters before Lauren Faust got her hands on My Little Pony and turned it into something fairly interesting. Now, I may be wrong on that. There's a couple of G3 fans that I've talked to that brought up that there's some interesting stories and concepts in previous incarnations of My Little Pony. Need to sit down and have another discussion about that. See what else is out there. Now I'm just babbling. Just Michael Bay. If you like pressing my buttons and getting me to rant, just bring up Michael Bay or Transformers 4. That'll do it. That's what gets the nerd rage going. Okay. Don't really have much else to discuss here. Wanted to do another random live event, just something fun to do. Probably going to end this for now. Do another one sometime next week. Need to get the crew back together and do another headcanon hive. Leaning more towards that. And try and have another episode of Headcanon Hive within the next couple of weeks. I've been really bad about that. A lot more fun when there's two or three people bouncing off of each other and you can get some more varied opinions on this stuff. Okay. Just going to. Sorry to disappoint and didn't really have anything interesting to talk about other than foot and mouth comments at the beginning there. Have a good afternoon, everybody.